Hello and welcome back to my channel. This is our year to shine. I hope it's been a beautiful sunshiny day where you are, like it's been where I am. Tonight we're going to continue our discussion on Louise Hay and Cheryl Richardson's book, You Can Create an Exceptional Life. And this chapter that I'm going to talk about is called Becoming the Creator of an Exceptional Life. So how do we create this exceptional life? That's what we want to know. That's why we're reading this book, right? I did talk about affirmations in the introduction, as well as some focus on the positive, and we've talked a lot about that on the chapter and getting the momentum going in the right direction. Last time we talked about how Louise basically wants us to just keep going towards the next thing and trusting that life has our back and that it's all happening for good. So even if it's not immediate results, if you keep opening the mail and answering the phone and going through the various doors that open, then eventually you hope to get there, right? And have this exceptional life. So this chapter is a lot about the affirmations and a lot about really trying to focus on the positive, even if circumstances are challenging to you. So Louise talks about how she was all ready to have a really great day one day, and then everything was going wrong. She kept saying, like, all right, I'm going to turn this around, I'm going to turn this around. It was just sort of like a comedy of errors. And so she did decide, she said some affirmations. She really decided to just not let herself spiral into that negative, annoyed place of traffic or whatever was in front of her. And then once she turned everything around, she says she showed up at work and there were flowers waiting for her. It was all these wonderful things that just unfolded. Now, does that mean that those things wouldn't have happened had she not turned her attitude around? Maybe they would have, but maybe she either wouldn't even have noticed them, wouldn't have appreciated them. Maybe, I don't know, if you believe in, like meant to be or like synchronicity or whatever, maybe those things wouldn't have even been there if she hadn't really changed her mind and decided to focus on the positive. And, I've shared in this channel, it's difficult when you're in a spot where focus on the positive or be grateful. But if you are so far down on the scale, then it's like going back to how Louise said, like, just do the next thing in front of you. Just start like walking up that hill slowly. It's not like you can go from the bottom of the hill all the way up to the top and just go from depressed or hopeless up to elation and hopefulness. So you have to be gentle with yourself too. But it is a practice. And I like in this chapter how Louise really tells us in this chapter that, like, the main reason for life is to find things that you enjoy and to experience them. If you think about us being spiritual beings having a human experience, and if you have this alternate life, or maybe at the end of your human life you go back to source or to heaven or whatever your belief is, then it's not the same as this human experience that you're having. So some people would say, and some religions say, that we made the decision to come here and experience ourselves in a physical plane. And think about it in that way. It's like this is like a tactile experience where you can think, you can choose, and you can decide to have fun, or you can decide to be unhappy too. And I'm not saying that circumstances, like everything's rosy for everybody, but I can say from my own experience, and this summer is a really good example because I was thinking about this. I shared with you guys how much joy and pleasure I found from being in my garden again and watching my birds and just feeling like more connected to nature and the earth and creating and stuff. And so I remember a few months ago, like, I would have some moments and I would feel good. but then I would go, yeah, but, and then I would go back to the not feeling good. And it wasn't even intentional, but it did take, I guess, some practice. If you think about the fact that, like, I was just following, like, I got up and I would go, I have to do this, but I really just want to, like, go plant those flowers I bought, or I have this idea for a new, like, border around my bird bath area or something. Like, I just went with those things that felt good, and I still got my stuff done, but I felt like the momentum of doing a lot of those things that I really enjoyed, and, like, connecting with myself on a real deep level of, like, what brings me satisfaction, it ended up turning things around for me. So if you think about the affirmations, and if you're going to say things that are on the more positive end of things, then it would be sort of like, it's not always going to just cancel out the negative, but it should be a progression of a flow that becomes easier. And then, just like the flowers that showed up for Louise, it's like, then you start to notice those things, versus if you come in a horrible mood, it's like maybe the flowers fell off your desk, or it would be just like a continuation of what you didn't want. And I mentioned Abraham on the channel before, and Louise mentions Abraham in this chapter too. It's like, if you want something of something, then here you go, there's more of it. And if you don't want something of something, then here you go, there's more of that. And what are most of us really vibrating? A lot of times we are vibrating more of what we don't want. And maybe we're afraid to really think about what we want, or we don't feel deserving, but we just are focusing on the present versus, well, you can focus on the present, and I've talked about the power of now. You can focus on that in a better way, versus you're just going to stay stuck in the circumstances that you're in if they are negative and less than desirable. And you can't turn your thoughts towards a new direction. Yes, Annabelle's chiming in. Then you are just going to continue to just get more of that crappy experience. And I can say that from experience too. So the two of them are both on the same page, and they have both experienced the way that thoughts can, and their attitudes can really have a significant and powerful, what's the word? I can't think of the word. Effect. That was the easy word. On the experiences that they're having. So this chapter, it's hard with this book because it's not broken into little, like, sections of topics. So I probably should put little sticky notes about things that I want to talk about. There's just so many things that I could say, because Cheryl shares some of her experiences, and so does Louise. And Cheryl talks about there is a law of, there's another law besides the law of attraction. And I mean, I guess actually it is the law of attraction in a sense anyway, but there's a word that people call it, law of something, where, like, if you buy a certain car or you want a certain car, then you start seeing it everywhere. So Cheryl tells us about how she really wanted to buy an orchid plant, and she just thought about it and she didn't do it. But then in the same week, 2 people just randomly sent her orchids. So she was thinking that, that was a testament to her putting her attention on something, even just in a small way, and then having it come back to her. So I'm going to read the words here from the book. What we put out into the world has a great effect on what we get back. Most of us are shown examples of this every day, but we never make the connection. And Louise says, we are constantly working in cooperation with life, and we want to inspire people to practice so that they too can experience the evidence in their lives as well. We simply need to keep an open mind and trust our own experience. And Cheryl says, I couldn't agree more. At any given moment, we see, feel, send, and affect energy in ways we seldom, if ever, imagine. Yeah. What do you think? Is this concept totally new to you in terms of like the energy of your thoughts or the energy of your experience? Is that something new to you in your life? Or have you always been sort of aware that everything has an energy? There's even cellular proof of the movement in little atoms and everything on a molecular level too. So this is the spiritual element of it though. So we can also send energy, she says. Have you ever been afraid of getting sick and wondered if worrying about it had anything to do with it actually happening? Again, if you're going to put your attention on it, even if it's like, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to get sick, well, you probably will. Have you ever desired something so intensely that it seemed as though your focus on the object of desire had something to do with it miraculously showing up in your life? Yeah, so many spiritual teachers have talked about this. Like I think about Dr. Dyer, he needed a wrench or something, and he went on a walk and he just thought about the wrench the whole time. He said that he came home and there was one in his driveway. Was it there before he left and he didn't see it? I don't know. Did it drop out of the sky? I don't know. These are things that you can't necessarily explain in some respects. So there are things that can happen when we transmit energy. By sending out signals in the form of thoughts, words, and actions, we energetically influence our environment and subsequently our life experiences. You can just try this, I'm telling you. Like, say you have coworkers that you don't like, and you start saying affirmations about them and really sending out loving energy to the workplace and things like that and setting the stage. It's really interesting how doing that, it's not like the people's, their behavior might actually change, but it's the way that you're looking at it. Like some of those things might not bother you anymore, or you might think, wow, she doesn't do that anymore. Yeah, just try it. You'll see. All right, Cheryl's talking about their experiences on the tour. You've got a lot of power inside that body of yours. Unless you're willing to move through anger, we talked about anger, right? And connect with the energy on the underside, you will keep feeling stuck. So that's something that a healer was saying to her. And it doesn't have to be anger. It could be anything stuck in your body. So if you're going to move past it, you have to transform those emotions and maybe the thoughts and feelings around it. Cheryl talks about how she worked with some horses at one time too. Have you ever heard about equine therapy? So she did some healing with horses and she was able to connect with them, and she was even with her mind, it's almost like a Jedi thing, you know, she was even able to like have the horse sort of move towards her and stuff. I don't know enough about horses, but I do hear that they're very spiritual animals. So somehow she was connecting in and she was able to like make the horse like turn in another direction without touching it and stuff. I know this might seem like really out there, but it does happen. And you know, if you experience those things, just like with Louise healing her cancer, like if you went out and then you realized that you could actually get a horse to move in another direction or something, wouldn't you feel super powerful? And maybe you would think like, I wonder if I can move that apple, or I don't know. You have to remember that we all have egos too, and we all have doubt about like a scientifically proved, you know, the force of gravity or something like that. But it is interesting to think about energy and how your own energy or your own intention might actually affect other things around you. So here are some things that you can do. So remember I told you how Louise was really angry or was having a difficult morning. Here are some affirmations that you can say, and this is on page 39. When things are not going right, and you want them to change for the better, or you want to try to work on your state of mind in a short period of time. I release this incident with love. It is over and done. I look with expectation to my next moment, which is fresh and new. Only good experiences lie before me. I am greeted with love wherever I go. I love life, and life loves me. All is well, and so am I. She usually ends her affirmations in that way. Your thoughts directly influence your life, Louise reminds us. It's easy to get caught up in a debate about how this principle works, whether or not it works, or the validity of thought creating reality. But debating these ideas is like expending precious energy, arguing about how a radio works rather than simply turning on the station that you want. That's a good point, right? At this point in time, using spiritual rather than intellectual tools requires faith and an open mind. Spiritual tools make life easier and more rewarding. So, if we're talking about creating an exceptional life, then there is going to be a bit of faith and spirit in it, according to Louise and Cheryl. What do you think? Cheryl and I are trying to connect people with an easier way to live an exceptional life. That's Louise saying that. When they understand the concept and put it into practice by thinking thoughts and making choices that make them feel good, they'll put themselves in a state of flow with the universe, and miracles will start to happen. So just test it, just try it. Then they'll get all the evidence they need. Things they can't even imagine will begin to occur. And then I like this part here too. You are an extraordinary spiritual machine. That's really cool, huh? Right now, there are more than 50 trillion cells in your body all working together, enabling you to read this sentence or listen to me saying it. Your cells don't argue, they don't question how things work, and they don't engage in a debate about who's smarter or more efficient. They align together in beautiful harmony to allow the machine called your body to function at its highest possible level at any given moment. What a miracle. Seems so simple, but it is miraculous. This same kind of harmonious interplay takes place in our outer world too. Every day our creative currency of thoughts, words, actions, and feelings are working in divine cooperation with the energy of the universe to create our lives. By focusing our energy in a positive way, we are far more likely to generate good experiences. It's really that simple. Staking claim to the creative power and using your energy wisely can be challenging at first. After all, most of us are trained to live in fear and to think and act defensively, looking for what doesn't work and what might go wrong. I definitely tend towards that, or what isn't good about our lives. You need only watch a few minutes of the news or read the headlines of a newspaper or website to see where the collective focus lies. Discover the danger lurking in your drinking water. So these are some of the headlines. Yeah. And over time, you may actually find yourself drawn to negative news stories, conversations filled with useless drama and repetitive, harmful thoughts. Yeah, because everything just gathers momentum, right? And if like attracts like, then it's just going to be more of that. Once the cycle starts, it doesn't stop by itself. You have to be vigilant about making good choices and thinking good thoughts, substituting good for bad at every turn on every road. Immersing yourself in this fearful, depressing energy perpetuates negativity. For example, you might become obsessed with the latest reality program that shows people at their worst and begin to find yourself surrounded by individuals who are also in some kind of crisis. I remember telling you guys about how I started watching Game of Thrones, and then I noticed that there was a lot of fighting and stuff happening in my own life, and I just was like, I can't do this. I'm attracting that into me. I mean, fortunately, it wasn't like, fight, like real fighting, like war or anything, but it was, there was conflict. Without realizing it, we develop patterns in our own life and also in behavior that direct our radio transmitter to search for and emit negative signals that only create more negativity and difficult experiences in our lives. And these patterns can become deeply personal. Every day we can end up stuck in a negative loop. constantly labeling ourselves as defective, bad, or unworthy. That's where I've been for a lot of the last year and a half, 2 years. When you hate yourself, or you say mean things to yourself, or you tell yourself how ugly you are, or hide from a mirror, you start to feel really uncomfortable. You don't feel good at all. You won't enjoy anything in your day, and very little good will come of it. But when you do something as simple as look in the mirror and tell yourself that you love yourself, even when it's hard to do and you don't believe in it, your energy shifts. That was one of our extreme self-care challenges this year. I think it was the first one, right? To look into the mirror and say that we loved ourselves. Silly things can happen, like getting a parking space when there usually aren't any to be found, or encountering green lights at every turn. I notice that sometimes when all of a sudden the whole ride is green lights, and I think like, yes, I'm on track. Today is going to be a good day. It's not to say that I haven't had good days when I get the red lights, but I like all the green lights. I wonder where it all began. How have we become so out of touch with the power to shape our lives? It's a good question. And Louise goes on to say that, like we talked a little bit about this with her past and her upbringing, a lot of us are not given the tools or the messages, the positive thoughts about life, and where like we get the garbage that maybe was just regurgitated to us as we were growing up. So we are kind of a product of that. So how can we continue our journey with emphasis on the positive? And Louise tells us about many wonderful teachers. I've mentioned Dr. Dyer, so she says Dr. Wayne Dyer, Abraham, who I've mentioned, Dr. Christiane Northrup. They all share the same message. I think the real goal in life is to feel good. That's what I said at the beginning. And we want a nice relationship because we think we will feel better. And if we could just make feeling better our goal, we would eliminate a lot of the extra work. How can I really feel good in this moment? What thoughts can I think right now that will make me feel better? That's the question we need to constantly be asking ourselves. And then Cheryl says, as I turn off the recorder and gather my things, I think to myself, amen, sister. Yeah. And that seems so easy, but it takes practice. I know for me, I think just because, again, of being used to maybe being in a negative frame of mind for a long period of time, it's harder to go up that hill that I was talking about. Whereas like once you're up at the top, it's easier to stop yourself from going down into the rabbit hole. But you got to get up there, and it does actually take practice. And Abraham has a lot of practices too, like getting up and doing what are called focus wheels, where you are just trying to come to like the best thoughts that you can about a certain thing that you are hoping to resolve or that you're wanting in your life, and really focusing on those things. And if you think about my example of just getting out and doing something that you love, then it is going to sprinkle and overflow into other areas of your life, where when you have good things to be happy about, then you're just going to be overall in a better place. And I'm not discounting that there are times when everything is going wrong. And remember last year, it was around this time where I was being counseled to just try to think of one good thing, and it was like all I could think of was my chair at the time. It was like I like my chair, I just like to be in my chair. It was like I could not think of more than one thing at the time. So I had to start with just one thing. I could not say I was grateful for 500 things. And so it takes a long time to get back to yourself. And I mean, we've talked about this in other books. It's like we're born with joy. We're born beautiful, celestial, spiritual beings. And then life can beat us down. It can. But you can have a different experience, and a lot of it is about the choices. And we'll go into the next part of it, how you start your day. is how you live your day. We talked a little bit about that last year, about the importance of things that you do in the morning. And this is an interesting perspective on it as well. I hope you're enjoying this book. I know there's not a huge amount of structure, and I'm just sort of reading things as they come to me, but I'm trying to do a chapter at a time, and it is a very easy read. We're already now on chapter 3, so I hope that you've had a chance to pick up the book and that you are getting something out of it as well. It has a lot of great reminders. It's not like none of this we've ever talked about. We definitely have talked about many of these things, but it's nice to hear it in a new way, and it's nice for me, honestly, to be reading this in a better frame of mind for myself, so it doesn't make me so resistant. I still struggle with that mirror thing, and when she's reading it, it's like, oh, just go or when she's saying just go to the mirror and tell yourself you love yourself, and it's sometimes there's a rub there for me on certain things, but we're all on a journey and we're all getting there, and we have to just decide what the right affirmations are. And speaking of that, I have to read my affirmations, the affirmation of the day. We have to figure out what the right affirmations and positive thoughts are. All right, let's see. This is going to be an affirmation from Louise Hay's Wisdom deck. I'm glad I didn't forget this time. I did read that little bit of affirmations in the middle there. Let's see what we get for today. All right, we got, there is a solution to every problem. Can you see it? Oop. Somebody's climbing a shoe. We create habits and problems to fulfill a need. When I can find a positive way to fulfill the need, then I can release the problem. That's interesting. There is a solution to every problem. It looks like the person in the picture is putting a shoelace on. That's what the person going up the ladder is carrying. So what do you think? Do you think that we create habits and problems in our own lives, and that we're doing that out of fulfilling a need? I never really thought about it that way. I guess I would say that it's almost like there's patterns that you just keep replaying. It's like a broken record. So I can see what she's saying. When I find a positive way to fulfill the need, I can release the problem. I hope you take something from that. I will see you on the next video. Please leave me a comment. I love hearing from you guys, and I hope you're doing well. I will see you then.